Hi, I'm L'Oreal Moondagger. I'm the current Kingdom Regent of the Desert Winds, and we're a very widespread kingdom which can make travel very difficult and nearly impossible to do in the winter. So I decided to create a series of tutorials in order to bring the arts and sciences to you, no matter where you are. So I hope you enjoy watching and learn a little something too.
Unfortunately, I forgot to start this process, or start filming this process when we first started. So I've done so far is I've cut the blank out, used the same center grip tutorial that I have on my online. Where I've taken the slat, put it in, done the strapping tape both directions. I've then dapped on a 1/4 inch piece of 2-pound MC microcell foam on the top, or on the, this is actually the back side, and cut the hole. I've already made the handle, covered that in leather, and then covered it in the tape, the painter's tape, so that it won't get Plastidip all over that nice leather as I create this. So we've got here so far is the scabbard that I also made before filming. This will sit about down here. The throwing scabbard's going to be here, and then she wants another pouch up here for some other stuff. But all of these are going to be set so that they can be attachable and detachable from the back side of the shield. She's also going to have straps that come in across, which is the way that she traditionally holds it, but she also wanted me to add in the center grip. So at this point we're going to continue making the rest of the pouches and the scabbards for the back so we get the placement correct before doing the front side of the shield, because all the straps that will attach these to the shield have to come through this side first, and we don't want any of those showing. So as we bring those strapping in, we're going to router out little channels for them to sit in there nice and flush, so that when we dap on the front side, it's completely flush and doesn't show any of those signs. Okay, so next what we need to do is figure out where the strapping is going to be for the middle of the hands. We have all the other pieces. Scabbard that's going to come down here. The throwy scabbard that's going to be somewhere up in there. And this, I've already talked to her and she says to go ahead and leave off the water bottle. So we've got the center grip here. What we need to do, since we've I correctly deduced that she's left-handed, went back and double checked, because the way that her scabbard is set on her other shield, being that this side is the front, so scabbard's on the bottom, so her arm will be sitting in this orientation. So what I've done is we've hooked up some roughly 1-inch straps that's going to go down through here. I measured using her old shield to determine where, and you can see where her old straps are kind of starting to break through and faded, and they're a little bit stretched and whatnot. But I deduced where they're at. Had to move them over a little bit because of the center grip here. Had to move them over in here. So then I went a 3.5-inch width. She's a petite lady, got smaller arms than I do. So we're going to go in here. I measured the width across. I don't know if you can see it right here, the lines. Let's move the scabbard real quick. Then I marked here. And then using a serrated steak knife, I went straight through and only across the width. So I went all the way through, came out the other side, then marked. So again, we've got the straps figured out, we've got the slots, or we've got the positioning for the straps, the slots cut on both the hand grip side as well as the forearm strap. Around on the other side, I've marked out the width of the strap. And what we're going to do now, because we're going to have to layer this side flush with MC foam to cover up the hole and make the nice flat surface that we'll be able to Plastidip. We don't want those straps to come in, above it and end up having, that raised bump. That won't look very well. So what we want to do is you can either take it out of your plastic or your MC layer, which normally I do, but in this case we're going to be using a nice real thin sheet like the back, so we're not going to have a whole lot of space. So I'm going to be very carefully gouging out just about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of foam out of that trough. Get it nice and flush. And that way those straps can sit right in there flush with the surface. Okay. Now, one thing to realize is this white foam that I'm using right here is probably a 2.2 pound polyethylene sheet, so it's fairly stiff and straight. It's going to give lots of support for that strap so it doesn't pull through. However, I am still going to reinforce it like I've shown in my other tutorials with strapping tape underneath this area. So the next option is, now that we've dyed our straps, I'm going to put a stitch down both sides to add strength so that the strap doesn't stretch over time as your hand sweats into it and whatnot. The stitching that I throw along the sides looks purely decorative, but it's actually there to keep the belt from stripping or from stretching. So we'll do that next. Okay, here I've got the hand strap through and around. I'm going to work the forearm strap. Now, one thing you want to realize with the forearm strap, you want the buckle on the downward side. That way, if there's excess belt loops, it's hanging down. And in this case, it's probably going to slide underneath that back sheath if it does happen. So we're going to start and we're going to feed it through from the bottom side, come back around the tops. Okay, so we've got the forearm strap all the way through, strapped up, way tighter than what my forearm would be. I can't even get my hand through it, but that's about where her forearm would be. Her hand grip on the other side here, the two pieces are going to come around. We need to punch holes, so what I'm going to use is a rotary hole punch. We'll do 2 starter holes. And of course, rotary punches always suck. I'm going to do a total of 4 holes. Since we're using a really thin strap here, I'm going to put them at angles instead of just in a square pattern. Now I'm wanting to use the largest hole that I've got on my, well, yeah, it is the largest hole that I've got on the punch, because I'm going to have to stick a zip tie through it. Now, I'm going to lay that up. That's about good positioning there. So I'm going to take my pin and mark where those holes are on the strap beneath so I can punch holes to match. in the same pattern. What you want to make sure to do is put your zip ties on the outside of the straps, or where the knobby on the zip tie is. Make sure that's on the outer side. That way we're going to roll this whole double-ended piece into the middle of the shield foam, so that that zip tie isn't taking stress outside of the and being, you know, sheared off in this direction. Also, it will keep that knobby from being on the front side and gouging into someone. So let's get these into place. Come from the front to the back, and the back to the front. Zip that nice and tight. I'll do one more. Now these are going with some thinner zip ties than I normally will go with on these, just because it's a thinner belt. And backwards. Hold on. So I'm going to actually use 3 and just cross jump between a couple of different holes. Third one. Let's go from and then we'll snip them off. Push back, get a little bit of leverage from the outside so that we can push the section with the zip tie heads down into the inside. Oh, shoot. Okay, now I've got it. So it's all, so it looks just like one nice piece here. I still have a little bit of slack on the outside. You need to do that same thing for the other strap. So what we're going to do here is throw that reinforcement strapping tape across like I was talking about. So let's find my strapping tape. I'm going to cut a few strips. And then I'm going to bring those down. It's really hard to see white on white, but I'm going to come underneath the strap. See if I can zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to come, again, we've got that little trough dug in right here. Sorry, right here. I'm going to take the strapping tape, slide it under, get it nice and flash on the top, and I'm actually going to track it down into the groove and do that all the way down. And again, with this tape, that's going to help keep this strap pulling through to the other side and tearing up the foam. We've got shields out there that use this method that have been going now strong for 8-9 years. Look up at the camera every now and then because I didn't get it that close up. Now I've got the, this is the arm strap, or the forearm strap, the hand strap reinforced underneath. So what I'm going to do now is pull them tight from the other side Making sure on the hand strap that I don't pull those zip ties back out, so I'm going to pull from the other edge. Pull it nice and flush. Now, as you see, you can get a good side view of that. That strap is going to be nice and flush with the top while remaining secure. Now, to keep those straps from rotating too much, we're going to come right back in right over the same top, or same side. Right over the top again with the strapping tape. Just that little extra grip there will keep those straps from rotating, and especially on the arm strap or on the hand strap, keep that strap from rotating through and pulling those zip ties back out. It may happen eventually, but it's not too big a deal. Now, one thing I want to be careful with, and it's really hard for you to see in this situation. Let's see if I can zoom in on it. Let me put it, get what I'm talking about. Okay, this is the strapping tape that we've just laid down on the forearm strap, and as it's getting really close to the hole where the center of the center grip is, I want to make sure that I don't bring that tape all the way over, because tape getting dapped doesn't always grip very well. So I'm going to pull just a little bit of that up so I can shave it out and leave some straight foam close to that edge, so that when I come back and dap the MC cap later, the edge here, right here, will catch and get dapped foam to foam, and it'll have a much better bond. Now, overall, on the shield here, we've got plenty of non-tape surfaces. It's really hard for you to see with the white on white in the video, but we are now ready. Well, if we were at this point not adding anything else onto it, we'd be ready to go ahead and dap on the front piece and then the outside edge. But what we're going to do next, I'm going to be positioning strapping similar to these for the scabbards that I'm building for Heather. And once it's done and those pieces are ready, we'll go in and we will painter tape mask tape off all this leather, and then do the front side, do the sides, do all the decorative work, Plastidip. But as far as the back side, this is where we'd be about ready to be done. I would go ahead at this point and mask these straps off so that they're up and out of the way as much as possible for the Plastidipping process. So once I've got the other strapping in together, we'll get to the next part. And there you have it. You've got lower sword scabbard attached, the throwing scabbard or throwing knife attached, the pocket attached. Now they're all three attached 3 different ways, because I wanted to show you guys 3 different ways of doing it. First off, up here on the pouch, you can see inside there, I'm using snaps. So I can pop that snap on the inside. There's another second one down lower. And then with a little bit of work, getting them past the straps, the whole pocket comes off. Now you've got the back side. I had to do a little bit of extra cutting because it just dawned on me to show a different option to do these straps. And so the snaps will just snap back into place here. Would work if she wants to put something else there too. Anyway, so it snaps in, so they'll be out of the way. If she wants to slide this onto the belt, onto her belt, she can slide her belt through these holes right here, and then she's got a belt pouch. Similarly, the throwing dagger, I did it without buckles by just basically doing the same thing as we did here on the hand strap. I just did two smaller straps, one up on the tongue of the scabbard, and then one that holds the whole scabbard together. So being that it's a leather scabbard, you just pull that whole sucker out. It's set. These are small enough that they're not in the way. They're just little loops. Put it back in, you slide that one there, tuck the tongue up and under, and slide it back in there, just like that. Then the third way, I actually did full-on buckles, where you can take these out, and the whole scabbard will come off. You have to tuck the buckles under a little bit. And hopefully it comes out. Other side. What I'm having issues with here is that one. And by just turning the thing sideways, now that whole scabbard comes off. And then we can cinch these down nice and tight, so these little straps are out of the way as well. So next on to getting the front skinned, the edges skinned, and then we'll work on the heraldry. Okay, real quick before we put the front skin on, we want to go through, and all the leather strapping that we have on there we want to mask off. So I've just used some rolls of masking tape, blue painter's tape, wrapped it around, and then since that stuff is made to peel off and often does, took some yellow duct tape just to hold that stuff onto itself. Now what I'm going to do here is I've got a sheet of almost 1/4 inch MC foam, and I've traced out a circle where it's going to go. Now we're going to dap the two layers together. So at this point, put on some gloves. Because glue everywhere is kind of a pain. Then I'm going to dap the polyplank first and actually let it sit and dry for a good 5-10 minutes before starting the MC. MC foam, DAP for some reason dries really quickly on it. So we're going to let, normally you let DAP cure for 15-20 minutes between, or, you know, until it gets tacky and whatnot. So you want to make sure you get all the edges really well. That's one of the most important places. Everywhere where there's an edge, you want to make sure that you get fully covered, because that's where the seal's going to be, or needs to be the strongest. So I generally go around the edge first to make sure that I really get it. Now I'm using this DAP tool that I made just out of a piece of Vegetan leather and an old, I don't know, some kind of tool handle that I strapped together basically in like a chisel form. It allows me to spread that DAP on and get it nice and thin. You don't want DAP to go on thick or in pools, because when it dries, it'll dry If it dries really thick, when it gets cold in winter months, that DAP will just crack and break. Think, I don't know, like taffy. So you want it to be nice and thin, as thin as you possibly can, while still maintaining 100% coverage. You don't want to miss any little spots. So, and as you can tell, I've gone through and countersunk all the strap pieces for all those scabbards to make them flush, and I've even filled in on some of the sections that put little holes where the straps went through this side to go on the round side. So I covered that with some extra foam, and then strap taped over the top of it so that it wouldn't leave any holes or divots. Or none too bad, actually. It's funny, I used to never make it to the bottom of a can of DAP before Plastidip shields came around. I'd always end up, the last, inch or so of the can would be too hard and gummy by the time I finally got around to using that part. Now I blow through cans of DAP like gallons of milk almost. I'm making sure that I get those inside edges really well so that they seal really nice and tight inside. Now I'm going to go through and scrape excess DAP off and try to get it into the areas where I can see are a little lacking. And I'm going to set that over here, let it dry. In about 5 minutes I'll come back and do this section here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we've had that curing for about 10 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and get this other cap piece. Now I'm going to, as I go through, you know what, this can's almost empty. I want to make sure that I get the edges of this piece really well, and since I'm going to be putting that cap on top of here, I'm going to go over the outside of my line that I've drawn around by about ½ an inch, just in case I don't get this thing lined up just perfectly. I've actually obviously got extra bleed off, or well, what you would call bleed in a 2D graphic, but extra material outside of my line just in case I don't line it up correctly, and then I'm going to come back and trim that all off. Let's see if I've got some more in this can. Made sure I got that edge really well. Brand new can. Like I said, DAP cures on MC foam, microcell foam, really quickly. It dries almost as fast as I can get the stuff on. You got to really keep track and make sure you know where you've covered and where you haven't. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. Alrighty, set that there. I'll can of DAP on really nice. And just let this cure. I'm just going over, smoothing out some puddles that I found. I don't know if you can tell the difference there. So you can see some shiny spots. I'm going to go let this cure for a few minutes, and then we'll be able to put them together. And then I'll determine whether or not I need if I can just get away with just the one, or if we'll need to get a second layer on top of that. Normally I go with a 1/2 inch, but I'm trying to make this shield as thin as possible. So we'll see if we can get away with just that one. Okay, so that there piece is almost cured. And this piece is tacky to the touch over here in the piece. I'm going to go ahead, line that up as well as we possibly can, and then put lots of pressure on it. So now we've got the piece attached. We need to come around and trim it off. I'm going to go over to the bandsaw to do that. Squeeze over to here. First I'm going to raise up my bandsaw blade just a little bit more. Now I'm using the handle, from the punch grip as my source of turning, so that I can keep the rest of the thing flat. And voila, now we've got a piece here. Honestly, if I can make that cymbal big enough out of a thick enough piece, I think that'll do. Now what we're going to do is end up skinning the outside edge just like we did up here, but with just a thin strip. So what we'll do is we'll measure this piece. Looks like we need a piece that's just under 3 inches. So I think I've got some 3-inch stock strips that I've already made. So I'll put that on there with a little overhang. We can come back through and trim it off with the bandsaw at an angle. So we'll go ahead and get to that point and we'll go from there. Okay, so what I've got here is some almost 1/2 inch white 2-pound microcellular foam. The strip is just a little bit wider than this, which is actually good, as you can see. Because I want that overhang, I'm going to end up trimming and beveling off the edge. So I'm going to DAP again this section. Now this is the section that's really important on Plastidip shields, that you make sure you skin. You can get away with skinning if you just have a plank shield, the surface, because it's all the cells have a skin on them. Now that we've cut this outside edge down, all of these holes right here are porous. If you fill that with Plastidip, it's just going to become like sandpaper. You're just going to end up rubbing somebody up. So that's why in the amp guard rules we say a non-abrasive opaque covering, which Plastidip qualifies. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and DAP this whole edge, making sure I get both edges really well as the inside. Go all the way around that, let that cure for about 10 minutes. Then we'll DAP one side of this here strip, roll it all the way around, and connect it. Yeah, I'll leave it going and edit this part out later. Okay. Since I don't want DAP all over my works table, I'm going to come in, cover it with this catalog. Make sure you always seal up your DAP can afterwards, else you end up with a big pile of glue everywhere. It's happened once or twice. Now, since this is a porous surface on this here edge, it will eat DAP quite a bit. You'll get a lot in there. Make sure you come through and scrape it up, because again, if you get too much in there and it gets cold, that edge is going to start cracking, and then you have edge separation on your shield. And that's always a bad thing. So like I said a lot of times on the Facebook Plastidip forums, the most important thing when doing Plastidip is to have your construction down solid. If your foam crafting is solid, then Plastidip is just a great extra. If it's not solid, then your piece isn't gonna, work. It's like putting a silk covering or a $5,000 paint job onto a Pinto. Now, if the Plastidip costs $5,000, it's actually probably the cheapest part of the entire shield. The paint that I'll use on this to colorize it will be more expensive than the Plastidip. Okay. Set that over there. Let it cure for a bit. Alright, we're going to dap the MC, let it dry for a second, then get her done. So we want to make sure we get this edge too. as well as the leading edge and the following edge, tail end, whatever you want to call it, because those will marry up, hopefully, if you have it measured correctly, just great on the other end. Alright, now we let it sit there and dry for a few minutes. And we'll roll it on. Back in a few. Alright, so our strip is cured. And feels pretty good all the way around the edge. If you do that, make sure there's no wet spots. If it's still feeling wet and tacky when you press into it, then you need to let it sit a little bit more. Now I've made sure to make sure, or to notate on my thing, I don't know if you can tell it here, right here, it says this is the bottom. I also have a mark down here, and again up here at the top, giving me my up and down plane. I generally like to try to keep my seam on the bottom of the shield if at all possible, being that I'm always going to be staring at the top. So I'm going to start it at that bottom mark, press into it, and since I've made this a little bit extra on either edge, I don't have to worry too much about getting it completely straight since I'm going to trim it off. I'm going to follow it around, make sure I have overhang on all the edges, all the way around. So we got here to the edge, I have a little bit of extra. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up trimming that off. And then we got to get some DAP on that, let it cure, bond it together. I'm going to keep the excess here held up, or at the end, that way it doesn't bond, and I can actually press the tail end and butt it up against the top once this is dried. Okay. Now you want to roll that edge, put pressure against it all the way around. Make sure that edge is married up really nice. Now we're going to take it back over to the bandsaw so we can come in and put a starting bevel. Not bad. Now we've got a beveled edge there that we will then sand a bit into a nice, more rounded hemisphere. Get the detail work on tomorrow and we can start Plastidipping finally.